Like Chris Satullo, I grew up in a similar but different political family. Growing up in a sort of New York area Jewish family where politics was always the conversation. And in fact, I grew up in a town where my parents were heavily involved in getting Teaneck, New Jersey to be the first town or city in the country to ever vote for school integration in 1964. For my sister and I, one of our games growing up was setting up chairs for meetings. I went to college and majored in political science with the thought of getting involved in politics and changing the world, that changing the world being the operative thing. And as I was there, my politics kept moving further and further and further to the left, where they remain. I ended up applying to be a conscientious objector instead of applying to law school, and then ended up by accident becoming a jeweler and moving to the Ithaca area and building yurts and living in a commune for 7 years, and ended up moving down here in 1982, and in the late 80s started reading Al Gore's book about climate change, which actually was a very good book, and started slowly reading about climate change. And in the early 2000s, it became the entire concentration of my reading, working on giving myself a graduate education about climate change, which quickly became clear to me was the most critical issues that the human race has ever faced. There are lots of problems in the world, and if we don't deal with this one, the others just aren't going to matter. I started doing a series of art pieces. I make furniture for a living about climate change around 2008. And in 2011, at the Keystone Pipeline demonstration in Washington, I discovered an organization called Citizens Climate Lobby. I started a Philadelphia chapter in the beginning of 2012 and went to my first conference that July. So we are lobbyists. We are citizen lobbyists. That first conference, we had 175 people, and we met probably with 500 congressional offices. And what I knew going into this was that we were going to be lobbying congressional offices about getting Congress to pass a law putting a price on carbon. We're still working on that. We haven't succeeded yet. And I thought that was the essence of what we were doing. What I learned then and what I've learned since is it's a much bigger thing than that. That year, for the first time, one of the meetings that I was in, there were about 6 of us, was the office of Pat Toomey. And I think that before going into that meeting, most of us were somewhat ranging between nervous and scared shitless. And we got in there. We didn't meet with him, but we met with his staffers. And we came out of this and thought, wow, we can work with these people. The fact is, and I will hold to this day, that Pat Toomey hires really good people. They know our policy, and I have met with his office almost every time I've been down there. The last time I was there, I said to them, to the staffer we were meeting with, I said, you know, of all the offices I go to when I go down there, this is the one that I look forward to the most. And he said, you know, we may not always agree with your guys' policy, with the policy that we're pushing, but we love having you meet with us. Well, what I learned is that the real role, aside from passing a fee on carbon, of Citizens Climate Lobby is to help get Democratic and Republican members of Congress to work together to learn again how they can work together to pass legislation, how they can work together, even bigger than that, for the good of the country. Because the legislation that we are trying to get passed will only succeed if it's passed by both parties. We've learned, looking at Obamacare, and hopefully we will learn looking at the current Republican tax cut, that when a bill is passed by one party, it doesn't last. So we know that for democracy to work, members of Congress, as they used to, need to work together, and maybe more than any other group, that that the job that we've taken on is getting them to pass a price on carbon, but also to learn to work together. My first conference was 175 people. The one that we just had last June, we had 1,200 people lobbying.